Yo gamers, Nature here. Let's go over Phase 2 spoilers released by Wowhead for Hunters and WoW Season of Discovery. Full disclosure here, these are spoilers, so if you're looking to play the game more naturally in Discovery, you'll want to avoid this video altogether. As well, Blizzard stated multiple times that they intentionally place things in data mining that may be false or untrue in order to keep us guessing and keep the theme of Discovery going. With that being said, mash the like and subscribe and take everything here with a grain of salt. It can be changed at any time. Let's cover the Melee Hunter rune first. Now, let's switch gears and go over everything you need to know as like a ranged hunter. So let's go over the belt rune first. For damage, we have Steady Shot. This is an extra ability that has a 3-second cast and does 60% weapon damage. Thinking about this one, it's basically a fill. It does less damage than your Chimera, aim shot, multi-shot, but would do more than something like Arcane Shot. So basically, you would do your normal rotation that we're used to in Phase 1, and you would just fill this in between the CDs. As a side note, in Wrath, this had a lower cast time than 3 seconds. 3-second cast time does make this a little bit less strong because you could potentially clip your auto attacks. With that being said, the smaller your toolkit, the stronger this ability would be. For example, if you're a Beast Mastery Hunter, we're running Beast Mastery Rune. We don't have Aim Shot or Chimera Shot in that example. So you would benefit more because in that rotation, you would just have multi-shot. Then you would Steady Shot, Steady Shot, Steady Shot, and you would be able to get a little bit more advantage out of this rune. Now, next we have Expose Weakness. Your melee and range criticals increase your attack power by 40% of your current agility for 7 seconds. For some reason, I had a lot of hunters telling me that this was going to increase your agility by 40%. That would be insane, but no, it increases your attack power by how much agility you have. Now, I predict we'll have somewhere around 300 agility at level 40. Obviously, this would fluctuate based off your gear, but this would give us about 120 attack power for that 7 seconds. So that's a lot of attack power, you guys. However, with lower crit, the uptime would be lower. So at level 40, we won't have an insane amount of crit. So the uptime here won't be 100%. And to be honest, I do think this is the best belt rune I've seen so far. This is stronger with a build that has you using more abilities to increase the proc chance and when we have more crit. Next, we have Aspect of the Viper. Now, this is yet another reason we could tell Blizzard hates hunters. They know we have mana issues. In fact, Phase 1, we struggled most of the phase with mana. Hunters aren't supposed to be at our current gear level and everything in playing the game with our current mana pool. It's just not the way it was built. Despite the boss encounters being super short in BFD, we still had a lot of mana issues in the dungeon. Now, I will say my opinion is biased because I speedrun, and not only can't I get out of combat to drink, but even if I do, it's a tick or two because we're walking, we're moving. My big issue is we have to pick from fixing the problem or doing less damage. When we already do less damage than other DPS classes, you know, why do we have to make that choice? I could be wrong. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. However, Viper Sting, the hunter takes on Aspect of the Viper, causing your ranged and melee auto attacks to regenerate mana by reducing your total damage dealt by 10%. In addition, you gain 10% of the maximum or your maximum mana every 3 seconds. Mana gained is based off the speed of your weapon, and only one aspect can be active at a time. It's worth noting you do have to switch to Viper and lose Hawk here to make this effective, while then losing a better damage rune, while then also losing 10% damage. I don't see this rune ever being viable in a raid. However, this may be good for solo farming, or if you're playing a little bit more casually and you just like having a little bit more mana, that's great and fine with you as well. We'll switch gears here and we'll go over boots. To start off, boots, let's go over the same thing we did with Viper. I'm not going to rehash my whining fest about losing damage to fix the issue. However, invigoration, when your pet scores a critical hit with a special ability, you'll instantly regenerate 5% of your maximum mana. 5% is a decent chunk of change, and this works well on cheaper abilities with low cooldowns like Claw. We have the melee dual wield specialization that we covered already, and obviously we'll go with that as a melee hunter. And then we have Trap Launcher. Your trap's now placed at any location within 40 yards and can be placed while you're in combat. Additionally, your fire-based and frost-based traps are now on a separate shared cooldown. It's worth notating here that the traps are on separate cooldowns is great for probably PvP, and it could have some niche things in PvE. However, the big thing here is you'll be able to use traps in combat and you'll be able to launch them. So basically means we can do Immolation Trap, which does about 22 DPS, and Explosive Trap, which does about 6 DPS per target in a 10-yard AoE range, meaning 4 targets or more make Explosive Trap the better choice. Boots seem pretty standard for melee hunters. You'll get the dual wield. BIS for DPS is obviously going to be the Trap Launcher. It'll add that 22 DPS dot to any target you can put Immolation on. It'll be great for doing the AoEs as well. And then there's the Gerbait, the mana fix for invigoration. If you get gerbated there, that'll help with your mana issues. Lastly, we have 2 runes for bracers. I'm going to be straight up honest here. These next 2 runes look like BS to me. For one, a lot of other classes don't have bracers listed on their data mining, but 2, they seem a little sus, and I'll explain why. With that being said, for bracers, we have Focus Fire, which consumes all applications of Frenzy from your pet, increasing your range attack speed by 3%, granting 4 focus to your pet for each application of Frenzy consumed and lasts 20 seconds. Your pet gains Frenzy each time it uses a basic attack, increasing its melee attack speed by 6% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. I know that's a mouthful, but this at first look seems really strong. It's basically a 30% at 5 stacks haste buff to your pet. In addition, you'd gain 15% haste for 20 seconds of your own and 20 focus when consumed at max stacks. Both of these are, I mean, this is really strong. It's a big mouthful, and you might have to reread it a couple times. But basically, your pet's getting 30% haste. You're getting 15% haste. You'd be able to keep that up the entirety of the fight, except on your initial opener. And your pet gets a little bit more focus. I mean, that's absolutely insane. Or to be honest, I like this since it's a high skill capped rune, while also being really strong and would definitely do good damage. The sus thing about this rune is it's called Frenzy, and that's odd because Beast Mastery Hunters already get a talent called Frenzy that adds 30% haste as well to their when your pets crit. This would be really weird working with that, and just has me asking, is this fake or is it real? And they both are called Frenzy. If this new rune isn't called Frenzy, but it's something else, how would that work with the 2 and would the haste buff stack? Because they're both 30% haste buff for your pet. And they also want to like nerf pets. So yeah, it just seems really odd. And if I had to guess it's real or not based off of every rune we looked at so far, I call BS for sure. Next is engrave base bracers with TNT. Engrave your bracers with TNT rune, which increases the damage done by explosive shot and all your damaging traps by 10%. This doesn't look that great. We probably don't use explosive shot this phase, and the trap damage increased isn't that much. Same thing. This isn't that thought out, and because bracers here look sus already, I just call BS. Could be wrong on that for sure. I feel like there's a niche but large enough community of melee hunters to make this relevant. And to be honest, I don't think Melee Hunter looks that bad here. I mean, in phase 1, a Melee Hunter was averaging about 15 DPS behind for the median or average player. Remember, they were right there with Ret Pallies, which is a great spot for Melee Hunters. I really don't think there's runes or these runes will close the gap obviously with ranged hunters, but they certainly keep that gap from growing out of control and making, a melee hunter unviable, for example. So first, for melee hunters, we have melee specialization. This reduces your Raptor Strike cooldown to 3 seconds and is now instant. Mongoose Bite cooldown was removed altogether, and Raptor Strike has a 30% chance on each attack to not trigger its CD. Now, Mongoose Bite only works after you dodge, so this shouldn't really be a crazy difference in PvE, but it certainly has a use, obviously. However, there's a couple things to highlight that are pretty big. Raptor Strike is now an instant CD, so that extra damage isn't tied to your next melee attack. This is big as a melee hunter. You would have a weird weapon swing lagged timer, which we currently have in phase 1. This removes that. So you don't need to worry about your weapon attack speed, because your weapon attack speed lining up with your Raptor Strike cooldown is actually a big deal in phase 1, and we don't need to worry about that for phase 2. You also have a 30% chance to reset the ability. So that's pretty big, because not only can you do extra damage with Raptor Strike, but remember, your Raptor Strike increases the chance you'll reset your flanking strike. So having that ability, the more often we can use it, the more often we'll reset our flanking strike. I would move your Raptor Strike here to a scroll wheel, and just go in order of spamming flanking strike, Raptor Strike, Mongoose, then wing clip for max damage. You don't necessarily have to do a scroll wheel here, but that avoids you from having to mash the same button over and over and over again if you just put it on your scroll wheel. So that increases your damage as well. Now, in addition to melee specialization, melee hunters will also get dual wield specialization. This increases the damage done by your offhand weapon by 50%. Just to break down a little bit of math here, when you take your main hand and your offhand does a less damage than the main hand, even if they're the same exact weapon. That 50% increase means that those two weapons will do the exact same amount of base damage. And this also causes your Raptor Strike with both melee weapons when you're dual wielding. So instead of hitting with one, you'll hit with both. And Raptor Strike would deal 30% increased damage when you're wielding the two weapons of the same type. So you want to make sure you either have sword, dagger, dagger. It doesn't matter, but when you have the same two weapons types, your Raptor Strike will do even more damage. Now, since this makes your offhand weapon do the same amount of damage, besides like you'll have some hit and glancing blow disadvantages that an offhand has, but the biggest thing here is your Raptor Strike strikes on both. I'm not sure how this is going to work, and it's not clear, but if your Raptor Strike is hitting with both hands, then you would actually have a 40% chance of resetting your flanking strike instead of a 20%. So dual wielding here as a melee hunter seems to be the way to go. That's a lot of increases. You have a double chance of increasing your flanking strike. You'll do 30% increased Raptor Strike damage. In these, if you look at this, all this is kind of tied together. So this is making your Raptor Strike really, really strong with the dual wield specialization. Make sure if you have an opinion on what's in game or not, or just want to share what you'd prefer and be added, throw it in the comments below. Mash that like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.